Well, hello scrappers, Mike here, welcome back to my channel. Now, not too long ago I built a new foundry furnace, and to break it in I melted down some of the copper, the cement copper powder that I get out of my waste buckets, and made a couple of copper bars here. And I said in that video, if you guys were wanting to see more of that, I'd film some more of it, because I need to do something with all of this cement copper I've got piling up here. I've got like 5 or 6 pounds right here, and this is, you know, not even probably a quarter of what I've got between my two waste buckets. My old one, there's a label in here, between my old waste bucket and my current waste bucket, I've got a lot of cement copper. I'll give you a look at the waste bucket so you can see what I'm talking about and where this copper comes from, how it comes into being. Okay, so here's my waste buckets. This is my old one, and this is my current one that I'm using now. So the way this works, and I have a video coming out in a while about the day-to-day maintenance I do around the lab to keep everything working so I can recover gold and whatnot. I'll go into a little bit more detail in that video about how the liquid goes from my stock pot, which receives all of my gold recovery waste liquids. I keep copper in the stock pot. The stock pot liquid, after it drops out, any precious metals left in that liquid have been cemented out on the copper I keep in the stock pot. That liquid from the stock pot goes into the waste bucket, and I keep steel in the waste bucket, iron and steel. And then we get all the copper cementing out in the waste bucket. And then we got nothing left but iron left in the liquid that comes out of the waste bucket. And the iron's easy enough to dispose of. I actually have a video on how I treat the liquid coming out of the waste bucket. But the waste bucket fills up fairly quickly with cement copper. I mean, I keep cut up lawnmower blades in here from our big, wide riding mower. Every time I change the blades, I cut them in half and throw them in here. I got rebar in here. I've got long bolts, all kinds of stuff. Any kind of scrap iron and steel I can find around the farm goes in there to cement the copper out of the liquid that comes out of the stock pot. So let me zoom in a little bit and show you what I'm talking about here with the cement copper. See that iron rod has been eaten up pretty good, and it's just covered with cement copper. This lawnmower blade, this is covered with cement copper. This is all cement copper. In fact, the bucket is about half full now of cement copper. So this is about to become my ex-waste bucket, and I will start a new one, maybe in this bucket, because this is my old waste bucket right here. This is the one I've been taking the cement copper out of for these experiments I've been doing. See all that down there? That's mostly cement copper. So I just shovel it out of here, give it a few rinses, and then let it dry out, and that's what I'm melting up. So like I said, there'll be another video coming out that explains the operation of the stock pot and the waste buckets in a little more detail, and shows you how I transfer liquid from one to the other. So watch for that video to come out. But anyway, this is where I'm getting the cement copper from that we're melting today. And what I'll probably do is finish cleaning out this bucket and transfer any remaining iron and steel from the other bucket over to here. Then I'll have another bucket full of cement copper that I can do something with, like melt it down and make bars. Alright, so yeah, this stuff comes out of the waste bucket. I shovel it out, I separate out the big pieces of steel, iron that haven't dissolved, and then I rinse it 3-4 times with tap water. And I set it aside to dry. It tends to clump up as it dries, so it's very clumpy. But basically what we got here, copper powder. It's not very pure copper powder. There's all kinds of impurities in it. I mean, I just pulled a label out. Here's a little washer. Now that might be stainless steel. I don't know. There's going to be rust from the steel that's in there that this stuff's cemented out on. There's probably paint chips. There's going to be some zinc because some of the steel I put in there was galvanized. There's going to be, you know, organic material, just all kinds of stuff. It's not really very pure copper, but I melt it down with a lot of flux, like borax. I can get a halfway decent copper bar out of it. So my plan is to melt down some more of this stuff and make some more of these halfway decent bars, where a lot of the impurities have gone away with the flux from when I poured these. And you'll see that when I make a couple more of these, how dirty and nasty the flux is. It takes away a lot of the impurities. And then once I have a few of these cleaner copper bars, I mean they're by no means super clean yet, but they are cleaner, my plan is to melt them down and see if I can get something even cleaner looking. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to melt down at least a couple more bars out of this impure cement copper. So let me get some of this stuff in this crucible. And then I'm going to top it off with some borax, which will act as a flux. The borax will melt and form a slag on the surface of the molten metal. And a lot of the impurities will wind up in that slag. And we can separate the slag from the metal fairly easily. Oh, it's a hard lump. That doesn't want to break up. There we go. Okay, so I got to leave some room for some borax in there. I'm going to pack this stuff down tight because as it melts, it's going to lose a lot of volume. There's a lot of airspace between the copper particles. So as it melts, it loses a lot of volume. Put some borax on top. This is anhydrous borax, by the way. And I'll put links in the video description to what I'm using here. If you want to try and duplicate what I'm doing, have a lot of cement copper you need to do something with. And I might add more borax than that to it once it melts down and the volume of the stuff in the crucible starts going down. But for now, that's all I'm going to put in, because it will tend to expand a little bit at first. Even though it's anhydrous, it's got a little bit of moisture in it. It will try to expand a little bit, but then it'll shrink back down and melt. So, okay, let's just get this in the brand new foundry furnace and get it fired up and get it melting down. Okay, let's get this in the furnace and get it lit. I've done a few melts in it already. I mean, you wouldn't know I only built this, you know, less than a week ago. It's starting to get a used look about it, especially on the inside. Get the lid on, restrict the airflow a little bit, keep heat in. And we'll let that start melting. Like I say, I may put a little bit of extra borax on top once that borax melts and soaks down into the powdered copper. Just want to make sure I got a good flux layer on there to absorb impurities. So it's going to be a while before it gets good and hot. We'll just let it go. There, it's been a few minutes, starting to heat up. You can see how the borax has expanded some in there. But it's starting to melt, liquefy. It's not going to run over. But once it does melt and run down, there'll be room for me to put in some more borax. I might even put in some more copper, just to make sure we get a good pour. Because the level of material in this flask is going to go way, way down as everything heats up. So I hope that's showing up. It's a little while later, and you can see how much the level in the crucible has dropped. I think the copper's starting to melt. The borax is all melted and run down into the powdered copper. So the volume's really dropping down. I think what I'm going to do is throw in some more chunks of copper and put some more borax on top of it, just so we get a fair amount of copper here in our pour. Gonna put in some more copper. Just gonna throw some of these big chunks in here. Ooh, that's hot. Right through the glove. Some more borax right on top. Yowzers, that's hot. Let that all heat up and melt down again. While I'm waiting, I'm going to go find my loaf mold, and we'll get it preheated before we pour it. I think before it though, I'll stir it all really good with an iron rod, just to make sure we break up any lumps and get all the copper in contact with the flux, and get any impurities out into the slag that's going to form on top. So yeah, got a little while before we're ready to pour. So let me find that stuff. Well, everything's looking pretty well melted in there. So I got my stir stick preheating. I'm going to give it all a good stir. Preheat my mold, and we should be ready to pour. Oh yeah, everything's good and liquid. There's no lumps. It's all melted. Nice layer of slag floating on top. Hopefully incorporating all those impurities I talked about. Ooh, it's hot in there. Wow. Gotta preheat the mold, so there's no chance of a steam explosion. Slightest little bit of moisture. As soon as I pour that stuff in there, it'll explode right back out if there's any moisture on that mold. So we'll give that a minute or two to heat up. We'll be ready to go. This is plenty hot by now. Gonna hit it with a Spritz WD-40. That will put down a layer of carbon that will prevent, hopefully, the ingot from sticking to it. We'll see. Whoa, that is hot. I never know whether I should skim the slag off before I pour or just pour it as is. Leave a comment and let me know what you think, what works best for you. Maybe on the next one I'll try skimming the slag off first and see if I get a better looking bar. Anyway, we'll let this harden up and turn it out, and then we'll dump it in some water. And I know some of you are going to complain, you always do, that I'm not wearing enough PPE while I'm doing this. And well, you're right, I'm not. I should be wearing leather apron, long pants, leather boots, maybe even gloves that come up to my elbows or higher. I should be. But I'll tell you what, it's Florida, it's summertime, it's close to 100 degrees out here, even without standing next to a 2,000 degree foundry furnace. Putting all that stuff on ain't easy, let me tell you. Not out here. Okay, let me get some water ready to quench this in and we'll turn it out. Okay, let's see what we've created here, besides maybe a mess. There we go. Some of the slag stayed in the loaf mold. Oh, that is a heavy one. Got a lot of copper in this one. I can't hardly even pick it up with the tongs. Got a little bit of a grass fire going over here. That mold's pretty hot still. Oh, look at it boil. Look at it boil. That is a hot chunk of copper. Alright. We'll let that finish boiling. We'll take it over to the workbench and look at what we got. Well, in the time it took for that to quit boiling furiously, I got this crucible refilled with another charge of copper and borax. Get it in here and get this lit. Get that melting down while I have a look at that and see what I can do about cleaning up the loaf mold a little bit. Okay, now the last couple of times I did this, yes, the slag separated nicely from the copper. And look, it did it again. Very nice. This is a nice looking bar. This is a very nice looking bar. I'll go wire brush it and we'll get a good look at it then, alright? But yeah. Hey, the best one I made so far. Well, practice, 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 I guess. First, second, third. They're getting better. It may just be that, I don't know, maybe I'm pouring more copper. It's possible. More copper, less slag may look better. Let's see here. So this one, the 634 grams. Exactly. How did I do that? How can they both be the same weight? I don't know. Weirdness of the universe. Yeah, 552. I knew this would be the lightest one. So it looks like when you got more copper, it comes out better looking. But I'll wire brush it, make it better looking yet. So here it is all wire brushed up. These have had a couple of days to tarnish. They were actually about this shiny after I wire brushed them initially. At least this one was. This one's got a lot of slag stuck on it still in places. But hey, 3, I'm about to have 4. And when I was rooting around, I found an old one I poured quite a while ago in a different mold. So we can add this when I'm ready to melt these down. I'll polish it up too. I'll wire brush it. Get the crud off the surface of it. Then we'll have, I think, enough copper to really pour a serious bar. You see, we're not filling that loaf mold up with copper. There's a lot of slag in there. That's okay. That slag carried away a lot of impurities. And left behind some halfway decent looking copper. Alright, let's go check on the other melt. Okay, just like last time, I'm going to add some more copper into that. As the level's going down. Then I'll pour some more borax on top. Big chunks here. Once they start melting down in there, be room for some more borax. Okay. Go get the borax ready. Okay, this stuff's ready to pour. I've already stirred it. It's looking good. I'm going to try skimming some of the slag off before I pour it this time and see how that goes. So I got my skimming stick preheating over the fire there. So I'm going to turn the heat off, pull the crucible out, skim off some of the slag onto the sandy area, and then we'll pour it in the loaf mold over there. See how it goes. Hopefully I won't set myself on fire. Just trying to get the slag off the top and leave the metal in there. And once again, I've got a grass fire going. Been dry lately. Okay, I know I didn't get all the slag, but got a good bit of it. Alright, let's pour this before the metal decides to harden up on me. Got my face mask, my bad. Oh, and I forgot to mention the slag that was stuck on the loaf mold came right off after a couple whacks with a hammer and chisel. Oh, there's one clean crucible in there. I was thinking about remelting the cleaned up blocks in a different crucible, but this one, well, it's clean enough to eat off in there. We'll see. Looks like I missed with a couple of my blobs of copper I threw in there. There's some molten copper down on the bottom of the furnace. I'll get that out later. Okay, let's let this cool down for a few minutes. I think the reason the last one boiled so hard for so long, it was probably still molten in the middle. So we'll let this cool down a little bit. I'll get some more water ready and we'll dump it out and quench it. See how it looks. Okay, let's see what we got. Hey, came out first try. Good. A little bit of crud stuck to the bottom of my loaf mold, but not too bad. I'll clean that out later. So we'll let this do its usual boil. It's funny how copper doesn't have its red color when it's hot. But once it cools down below a certain temperature, you get that reddish copper color to it. Above that temperature, it just looks like either metal or it looks black, you know? Doesn't have the distinctive copper color. Very strange. Very strange. Okay. We'll get that over on the bench. We'll take a look at it. Okay, let's see what we've got here. The slag's not coming off in one nice piece this time. Let's chip it off here. There it goes. All right. Messing up my long-suffering workbench here. I can see that there's a little bit of copper in the slag. Little droplets of copper in the slag. You know, if I didn't have so much of this cement copper to melt down, I might be worried about trying to recover the copper from the slag, but I don't think there's enough there to worry about. Just enough to see. Yeah, I'll have to wire brush this, but let's see what it weighs. 590 grams, 588. So this one's a little lighter than the last couple. I guess I didn't throw enough big chunks in. Let's see how much copper I've got here all together from out of my waste. 2 kilograms, 630 grams. So I think that's enough for now. So I think what I want to do, and I don't know if that's showing up. Let me zoom in on that for you. 2 kilograms, 630 grams. So my whole purpose behind this exercise, other than having fun with my new foundry furnace, which I just built the other day, my whole purpose here is to see if I can clean up the copper pyrometallurgically by basically melting it with a slag, with a flux that's going to carry away the impurities in the slag, and then once I have somewhat pure copper like this stuff, whether melting it again gets it even purer. See if I can get rid of more of the impurities. I mean, this stuff, I still need to wire brush this one, and this one probably should be wire brushed better. I mean, this stuff is a lot cleaner than what we started with here. A whole lot cleaner, all right? We've gotten a lot of the nastiness out of it. I mean, it's not, you know, 3 or 4 nines pure copper by any means, but it's certainly a lot purer than what we started with. And I want to see if I can purify it even more. So let me clean the slag and corrosion off some of these bars, and then we'll melt down a few of them again and see if we can cast an even prettier and cleaner looking bar from them. Should be interesting. Hey, kill the rest of the afternoon before dinner time anyway. Okay, let me get to wire brushing. Alright, so here they are. They're all wire brushed and pretty looking. So I guess I need to decide which ones I'm going to melt down. Looking at my cone mold here, or my loaf. Looking at my loaf mold here, which is still wicked hot, by the way. Even with gloves on, it's hard to touch. I'm thinking there's probably room to get about 3 of these bigger ones in there without overflowing. So let's see how much that's going to come to. If we do, say, these 3 here, we're just short at 2 kilos. 1 kilo, 854 grams. Or, oh, just over 4 pounds. Alright, so let's try melting these 3 down and pour in 1 big ingot and see how it looks, okay? But it's late in the afternoon, it's getting towards supper time. I think I'll do it early in the morning while it's still cool, before it gets up to 100 degrees out here with high humidity. And maybe I'll be more willing to wear my PPE like I ought to, like a good boy should. So, yeah, I think we'll try that. I think we'll wait till tomorrow. We'll melt these down and pour them. I need to scare up another propane tank too, because I don't know if there's enough propane left in that one tank to get through the melt on these. So let me get a second propane tank ready to go. And tomorrow morning, we'll melt these down and see if we can make a decent looking bar out of them. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping this pyrometallurgical cleanup actually works. Okay, see you in the morning. Alright, it's the next day. It's a nice cool morning. Well, for the time being anyway. Nice and cool. So let's get this show on the road. Let's see, I think we decided we're going to melt down these 3 bars here. Yeah, and see if we can make a nice 4-pound ingot out of them. So let me get them in the crucible here. I have cleaned all of the nasty black slag out of the crucible. I put the 3 bars in there. I'm going to put some borax in to act as a flux again. See if we can get rid of some more of the impurities out of this stuff with the slag that'll form. So let me get this in the furnace and see if we can pour us a nice looking big bar. Okay. Okay, let's get this in the furnace. I've got another tank of propane ready to go, just in case the one I'm on runs out before we get this all melted down and poured. And we're off! Get this done this morning before it gets too hot. Well, the borax has melted into a puddle in the bottom of the crucible, but the copper hasn't started melting yet, but it should pretty soon. Everything's glowing nice and orange in there. So I'm sure it'll start melting down in a few minutes. I'll get my loaf mold and my tongs and everything out and get ready to go. Well, it's been a few more minutes, and I would say they are definitely starting to soften and sag. So, shouldn't be much longer before they actually start melting. Probably see them sweating around the top first. Ooh, that's hot. I gotta back off. But we're getting there. Well, that was quick. It's literally been like 2 minutes since I filmed the last segment. I thought they looked like they were starting to soften, but yeah, they just up and melted in no time. Alright, let me get my stir stick. We'll stir it up. And then we'll probably be about ready to pour. I'll have to get my loaf mold over here preheated. And then we're good to go. Oh yeah, totally melted. Totally melted. Alright. Cool. Oh, that is one hot stir stick. Alright. Let's burn any moisture out of that, and then we should be ready to pour. This should be hot enough. Okay, I'm compromising with my PPE today. I got my leather apron on. I was rewatching that video where I smelted some tin, and when I poured it, a big blob of molten metal tin flew out towards the furnace. I suppose if it had flown out towards me, I would have been in a world of hurt. So I'll compromise and use my leather apron here. All right. Turn the heat off first. I got it. That is a heavy crucible though. So I'm expecting when I pour this in here that the slag is going to overflow all over the place. But that's pretty unavoidable, because I think the copper is going to pretty much fill up the mold. So let's get this done before it decides to solidify. Well, no, not as bad as I thought. We've definitely got a layer of slag on top of the copper, but the copper pretty much fills the mold. There's not as much slag there as I was expecting. So that's good. Okay. Put this back in the furnace so it can cool down slowly. We don't have any thermal cracking. Okay. Alright. That is still liquid. I still see liquid copper bubbling up on the surface. So we're going to let that sit for a little bit, harden up. I'll go get some water to quench it in once it is hardened. Okay, let's see if I can get this thing out of the mold. It looks like maybe the slag has hardened up. Oh, I was afraid of that. Ow. Ow, that is hot. Okay. Yeah, I'm just destroying the concrete here. But that's not really coming out. Huh. Let me let it cool a little bit, maybe differential contraction between the cast iron and the copper. Maybe it'll break itself free. I mean, the cast iron mold has a good relief angle on the inside of it, so hopefully it will break free. It's also really too hard to grab even through my welding gloves, so let it cool down a little bit, and I'll get something harder to hammer on over here, and we'll see if we can bust it loose, because all I'm doing is destroying the concrete paver over here. So let me find something sturdier to hammer on too. Okay, I got a steel barbell weight here to use as an anvil. I got my Kevlar kiln gloves on. Whoa! Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. They just don't make loaf molds like they used to, I guess. Well, there's the copper. Huh, it only cost me a loaf mold. I guess I could still use it, it just doesn't have a handle anymore. Huh. Okay. That's gonna take a while, cooling that copper down. Oh, I don't know if you saw that the color of the copper appeared once it started cooling down. Before that, it didn't look like copper. That's a very cool transition. Okay, we'll take a look at that over on the bench, chip off any remaining slag, and weigh it up and see what we got. Shame about that loaf mold. Darn it. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Wow, that is something. That is something. Let's see if I can get some more of this slag off. Yeah, some of the slag stuck on here pretty good, unfortunately. I guess that's just discolored copper there. Thinking what happened is after I poured it into the loaf mold, it cooled and contracted and squeezed still liquid copper up out through the center. That's what I'm thinking happened anyway. And we got some slag stuck on the bottom corner of this little copper mesa sticking up here. Alright, let me go give this a wire brushing and we'll see what it looks like, and we'll weigh it up, see how I did. Okay, so here it is, all wire brushed up and pretty looking. That is an impressive chunk of copper right there. It really looks like copper too. Yeah, I mean, here's one of the earlier bars for comparison. I mean, it's had a chance to tarnish a little bit overnight, but really, I think the second melt with more borax carried away more impurities, and we got much prettier looking copper here. Definitely. Let's see how much copper we've got. Ah, 4.085 pounds. Oh, for you, those of you in the metric world, 1 kilogram, 852 grams is what we've got here. Okay? And I'm looking through the slag here, and I really don't see any copper in the slag like I was seeing when we did the first pour on these rough bars. So, I don't know, maybe the slag was less viscous this time around because it absorbed fewer impurities? Second time around, there were fewer impurities to absorb? I don't know. Maybe. Possibly. So anyway, oof, yeah, that's a heavy chunk of copper right there. Hard to hold on to. But we've got a nice chunk of copper here. And, you know, I'm looking at it and I've got questions questions, questions. And if you know the answers to any of these questions, you feel free to jump in the comments and let me know what you think or what you know. So I'm wondering if I was to remelt this copper again and pour it in a couple of pours instead of one big one trying to fill up that loaf mold, would it harden nicer looking without this big squeeze up on top? I'm wondering that. I'm also wondering if I was to melt it again, this time without any borax, would it look prettier and come out of the mold easier? Without a flux or a slag, does it need a flux again to remelt? Would I have fewer voids and Swiss cheesy type stuff in it if I didn't have a flux? So that's something I'm wondering. I'm also wondering if I was to take this to the scrapyard, would they buy it from me as copper, or would they want to buy it as red brass? I don't know. Questions, questions, so many questions. Like I say, if you know the answers to some of these questions, let me know in the comments. And maybe in future videos, we'll try and answer some of these questions ourselves. But I think this video is about long enough, and I've got other things to do today, so hey, if you found this video at all interesting, educational, informative, whatever, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see my future videos. Check out my second channel, ElectroGeek64. There's good stuff going on there if you're at all interested in electronics or retro computing. And I will see you in the next video. Who knows what we'll be doing. I'll see you then. Bye.